Hi guys, it's Stevie G and welcome back to part 2 of my Introduction to Photoshop series. Okay, in this part here we're going to have a look at what some of the tools do. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is colors. So if you look down the bottom here, you'll see there's black and white colors to represent what's foreground and background colors. So you've got two of those here. So if I click on the foreground color down here, and then it'll bring up the color picker dialog, so I can actually go choose another color. So if I go choose red, for example, you can see that down there now it's changed that color, my fore color, to red. I'll also show that the background color is black, right? If I want to swap them around, I want the background color to be red and the foreground color to be black or something, you can actually just click that there and it switches them around. So now let's say I want to swap back to being black and white, black as the foreground and white as the background. I can click that there, right there on the top side there, and as you see that they've gone back to black and white. So but yeah, once again you can go and click foreground, choose a color, whatever you want, or background and choose your background color. You can do that on either one of those. When you're choosing your color as well, if you want to change to what shade, you just use this here on the side. So if I wanted a purple, I would move it to this area here, and depending if I want more of a pink or more of a dark purple. So if I want a sort of like a dark Cadbury purple, say for example, or something, I would go there, and I can use that color. So as you can see there, I just quickly use the bucket tool there on the left there, and that fills that area. So I've filled that whole thing with purple, as you just seen then. So that's the first thing there. That's the bucket tool. See, if I click and hold on some of these tools, you'll notice that some of them have like a little arrow in the corner. If I click on the ones with an arrow and click and hold, it'll actually give me a multi-selection. So let's say if I go up here now and we look at selections, so I can do, what kind of selections can I do? I can do a rectangular marquee tool. So if I just click and draw whatever rectangle or thin rectangle or tall or whatever, I can go and create a selection around something. And selections can be used to copy or cut or move or things like that. So I will show you a trick this in Photoshop. If you want to do a selection, so what I'm going to do here is deselect, right? That just gets rid of my selection. And just also for informational purposes, if you look on the side of deselect there, it says Control plus D. Those are shortcuts. They're called shortcut mnemonics, and they actually tell you what you can do to quickly access that. So if I wanted to deselect something, I can go Control on my keyboard and then hit D, and it deselects it. So it's a shortcut to that. And you'll notice a lot of things in Photoshop and other programs use mnemonics like that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a trick with selections, where if I hold Alt on my keyboard and then I make a selection, you'll see that it actually starts from the middle and goes out. Whereas if I don't hold Alt and I just use my mouse, it starts from the top left, and it doesn't make a square. I can make a rectangle in any shape. So if I now hold Alt and start from the middle, you'll see that it pretty much starts in the middle and goes out. So that's what Alt does, starts in the middle instead of the top left. Now Shift, if I hold Shift by itself and then make a selection, it starts in the top left, but you'll see that even if I go up or down with my cursor here, it makes a perfect square. If I let go of Shift, it will conform to whatever. If I hold Shift again, it goes back to being a square. So that's what Shift does. Shift maintains the actual it maintains the proportions, which is the height and the width of your selection is going to be exactly the same. So I know that's going to be a perfect square. So that starts in the top left. Let's say I wanted to make a square, but I wanted to start from the middle and I wanted it to be completely square. I would hold Alt and Shift at the same time and then do it, and as you can see, it starts from the middle and goes out and makes a perfect square. So that is a little trick there. So you've got, once again, Alt makes it go from the middle, Shift makes it maintain the proportions, right? So it sits there and says make sure that those proportions are constrained to being exactly the same height and exactly the same width. So, and if you use a combination of both, you're going to get Alt and Shift. So I go like that, it starts in the middle and makes a perfect square. If I let go of Shift, it's still going to the middle. So yeah, have a play around with your selections and you'll see that Alt on your keyboard, if you hold that as you draw the selection, or Shift, they do two different things. So that becomes very, very handy. Same thing if I wanted to create a circle. If I get a circle here now, I'll do the same thing and I say start from the middle and go Alt and Shift. I'm making it from the middle and I'm making a perfect circle, and there it is. There's my selection. Now if I wanted to just hold Alt, it's going to start from the middle, but I can make an ellipse or whatever, right? So it works the same way. So if I do the same thing here, and I've added a second selection, which I'll show you what that's all about as well. If you've got one selection, so let's say I select here, and then if you then have a selection already and then you hold Shift, you'll see that my cursor changes to a plus, which means I can add another part to the selection. Same thing, if I want to make a third circle, I can have 3 different selected parts just by holding Shift, and it changes the cursor to a plus. Quite the opposite happens when I hit Alt on my keyboard. It's actually as a minus, so which means it means subtract from the selection. So let's say I use subtract selection. I've subtracted a bit from that selection. So if I want to do the same thing and kill a bit off this corner and kill a bit off this corner, you can see that I can subtract. So plus and minus selections can be controlled using your Alt and Shift keys if you have already made a selection. So if you're making a selection, whoops, hit the wrong key. If you're making a selection and there's no other selections on there already, Alt will make it start from the middle. Alright, if you hit Shift, makes it go from the top left but maintains the proportion. So as you can see here, if I have a selection here and then I hold Alt and Shift, what's that going to do? It's going to do the opposing selection. Watch this. Now this, I don't want to get too confusing here with this, but you watch this. If I say it's this area here, it keeps that area and subtracts the opposite part from that. So let's say I go back to using my rectangle tool and I hold Alt and Shift and go and select half of this. It's going to make sure that the opposite half that I didn't select disappears. So that there changes the way that happens as well. So that's a couple little things you can do. Have a play around with those. You've got rectangular marquee tool, you've got elliptical marquee tool, single row marquee tool, which pretty much, you know, makes single row. I hardly use that. So single column. So I'm mainly using the rectangle and circle, things like that. So that's the basic rectangular and circular marquee tools, and also how to use your Alt and Shift keys to control your selections and make them do what you need to. So have a play around with those, and you'll learn how they work, you know, and how they can work to your advantage if you ever need them. So that's important for selections. I will also show you while I'm here that you also have a lasso tool below that, a polygon lasso tool, and a magnetic lasso tool. So I'm going to show you the lasso tool first. Lasso tool is basically, if I can draw any shape that I want, and it's going to basically make a lasso shape, and I can select any shape, but I have to freehand draw that. So sometimes that might not be really what I want. You know, I want more control. So sometimes you can use a polygon lasso, and I can actually do, it's like dot to dot. So I want to go, okay, I want to go to here, or I can sort of fine tune around a corner if I really wanted to. You know, I could use small steps or large steps or whatever I really wanted to do. And when you join up your selection, your cursor changes, it has a little circle next to it. You can either do that, or you can just find somewhere out in the middle and double click and it joins it up. So you can either try and join it up manually or just double click and it joins it up. So there's my selection I made with the polygon lasso. Gives it a lot more control. Polygon, I do use polygon quite a bit. So anyway, magnetic, if you have, let me see here, I'm actually going to go draw something so we can actually show you what this does. Let's say magnetic, which I hardly use magnetic. I think basically what it does though is if I pretty much want it to stick to the edge of something, if I go close to that edge, it tries to find the edge of it as much as possible, right? So that's the idea of what it's trying to do. So if I start here again and just sort of trace along the edge, it's like an edge finder. It just sits there and finds the edge and snaps to it. Does an okay job. It might not be what you want for some things, but yeah, it finds edges. So that's what that one does. Okay, so moving on a little bit more, I am going to show you, let me just get rid of that line that I've got there. Okay, I'm going to show you the magnetic, not magnetic, magic wand tool below that. So if I click on that, you've got quick selection tool and magnetic wand. I basically only use the magnetic wand pretty much. So quick selection just selects, you know, areas basically of, yeah. So quick selection, hardly use it. You can play around with that and see what it does anyway. I'm going to use the magnetic wand tool in a minute, and I'll show you in just a moment what that actually does. So I need to go and get another image, so just give me a moment here, and I'm going to paste it in here just so I can demonstrate what this actually does. Okay. Okay, so I'll just grab an image off Google here that I can mess around with and show you. So let's say I go and paste this image into here. If I go and just give me a second, I'm just going to size this up. I'll show you what that tool does that I just used in one of the future tutorials, but let me just size, whoops. When I size this as well, if I hold shift, as you can see, it maintains the actual sizing. So let me start again, right? See, I've got this, and if I, you know, basically go transform, and then as I'm sizing stuff as well, the same principle applies. If you hold shift, it makes sure that it stays right. If I don't hold shift, you'll get that effect where it squishes it up and doesn't look right. So what I shall do is go scale and let that go. And okay, so here we go. We've got a picture here that, you know, basically has a black background and has some lighting at the bottom. Now if I go and say that, okay, if I hide the background for a second, you'll see that it has a black background as well. Down here on the right, as you can see there, you've got your layer tool where I can hide a layer. So I've hidden my background and I've just got this shown. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit by holding Alt on my keyboard and scrolling my mouse, and that'll help me zoom in. And if I go up to my magic wand now and I select that, that's perfect. Now I'm going to show you something very quickly up the top here. There's a tolerance setting. So let's say this was set to 50 and we go to select something. You'll see it's selected inside down here in the address, and it's not very good because literally if I was to get rid of the background, you can see it's gotten rid of stuff that we don't want to get rid of. So you can go too high with your tolerance setting, and you can go too low. Like this here's okay still. So yeah, 5 seems to be working okay. Oh, there is a few little spots there that sort of don't look really good. So if I change this back to 10 basically, and select that again, you can see that it's selected most of what I want. So let's say there are parts in here that I want to add to it. So let's say if I zoom in, hold shift to add, I can do the same thing as I showed you before. I can add to the selection. So there's a black bit there. Now if I scroll down here a little bit, you'll see there's another bit inside the shoe. Now this part here, when you're doing selections inside something's a gradient, it doesn't always work really well. So you've either got two choices. You can try and play with your tolerance and, you know, mess around like that, or we can go back to using the polygon lasso tool up here. If I scroll in here so I can get a bit more control, what we're going to do here is we're going to basically add to the selection. So we're going to go shift and trace around here very carefully. Oops. Okay, just tracing up the side here, over here, down here. Okay, so I'm going to trace around this whole thing now that I've selected most of what I want. And as you can see, I've now basically only got, I've got everything outside of the image that I actually wanted. If I hit delete, it would get rid of that. Let's say I actually just want to invert the selection, because I've selected everything outside and all the black parts that I want to get rid of, and this gradient down there. How would I swap the selection so I can just select Lucy? Okay, so if I go here and I go select and inverse, and now that's Control Shift and I. So if I go like that, it flips the selection. You can't really see too much because I'm zoomed in a bit, but if I now go edit and go cut, you'll see that I have cut Lucy out of this image. So if I now, I'm going to delete that layer real quick. Alright, and then I'm going to just make that visible again. Okay, we'll zoom back out again. If I make another layer here and just go paste, you can see that I've now got an image there that I can move around, transparent, everything's good there. So that's basically in a nutshell how to do selections. I hope I didn't get too confusing there, but I think that the selection tools are really important, and they will definitely help you out with what you're doing. So yeah, I hope that really helped. If you found the video helpful though, hit the like button. It helps me get my videos out there. If you're new to the channel or you haven't subscribed, click on subscribe, and that'll help keep you in the loop whenever I upload new videos in future. Thanks guys, peace.